So where are we heading now? Back into the left?
Right, so JFK sees Oliver Stone take on the assassination of John Kennedy by the coward Lee Oswald. Or was it? Not if you listen to Kevin Costner's Jim Garrison, the New Orleans district attorney, who, after being dissatisfied with the Warren Report's take on things, launches his own investigation into the shadowy conspiracy to kill JFK and the alleged reasons for it, and the real guilty parties in this affair, Joe Pesci's David Ferry and Tommy Lee Jones's Clay Shaw, not Gary Oldman's Lee Harvey Oswald at all, who's just a patsy. And, well, so it goes, and I'm not going to dignify Jim Garrison's ramblings with the dignity of a recap, even in order to debunk them. There's no shortage of resources out there already for that. There is, however, an instructive quote from Oliver Stone, who at the time knew very little of either the actual facts or the conspiracy research around the JFK assassination, about reading Jim Garrison's memoirs, something along the lines of that it read like a whodunit, and that as a dramatist that excited him. And you know what? As dispassionately as I can manage, he's right. For it is a hell of a story, and Oliver Stone knows how to put a film together. Even for a 3-hour plus film, certainly if you're watching the director's cut.
3 hours, 24 minutes?
Yes.
It's a long film.
It is extensive, but even that, it does bomb along at a pace, and it doesn't feel stretched. And with a cast like the likes of which he's gathered here, it's tough to go wrong. You've got Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, Sissy Spacek, Donald Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, John Candy, which all makes for an engaging bunch of supporting acts, and Kevin Costner is, it must be said, excellent in the role as the pure as a driven snow, selfless defender of liberty and the American dream, Jim Garrison. Of course, the problems stem from Jim Garrison being a complete fruitcake. Now, I consider JFK conspiracy theorists at best swivel-eyed lunatics, and
I never get tired of you using that phrase.
And in the community of JFK conspiracy theorists, Jim Garrison is considered a swivel-eyed lunatic. So this may give some indication of my general feeling about Jim Garrison. And despite many people warning Stone about the quite blatant inaccuracies, distortions, and flat-out confabulations in Garrison's investigation, he seems to have managed to take up residence entirely in Stone's blind spot, because it's a story he wants to tell that fits in with his existing worldview. Now, I first watched Ollie Stone's JFK over a decade after its release at what I naively then thought was a high watermark in terms of the general belief in nut-job conspiracy theories. 9/11 mainly, but also anti-vax, chemtrails, all that garbage. And I was angry that people were so credulous, and watching Stone, someone who's self-identified as a cinematic historian, blithely regurgitate this already roundly debunked nonsensical theories, many of which are trivial to disprove, was hugely disappointing and infuriating me to then, and actually not all that much less so now, although I wasn't quite as angry this time round. Forewarned is forearmed, I suppose.
Age has wearied you.
Yes. Right.
The fight's not in you anymore.
Yeah. Look, I get it. I don't take the word of the government on face value either, but there comes a point where you just have to accept all the actual documented evidence of Oswald's guilt and the exhaustive studies and experiments that all prove that, contrary to the many plucked from the air statements presented in here, that the injury sustained, the technique, the location, Oswald's mental state are all consistent with the official line, no matter how discomforting it is, that one random nutter with a better than average aim and a gun can kill the most powerful man in the world. It's not any less discomforting to realise that one random nut with a gun can kill dozens at a school or a church.
Yes.
It's a chaotic world. Sometimes you just don't have any control of it. Now,
in a country fascinated with guns and full of swivel-eyed lunatics who love practicing with their guns and shouting about the president, one of those swivel-eyed lunatics with a gun that they've practiced a lot with shot the president.
In a country where it happens literally more than once a day.
Yes.
I know to some it's reassuring to think that all things are controlled by a hyper-competent cabal of the self-interest in government, although oddly the people that have those beliefs also seem to be the ones who least believe in the government having any competence in any other branch at all, so there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance there. But at any rate, Stone's JFK wallows in its own self-deceptions and misunderstandings, and is at best misguided and encourages people down the path of being open-minded to the points of their brain falling out. As such, I certainly cannot condone or recommend it, although, and it pains me to admit it, it is a very well-made film. And if this had been a work of fiction, well, I'll rephrase that, if this had been about a fictional character, I'd most likely have unreservedly enjoyed it. Oh, and that entirely invented slandering the dead gay orgy scene? Its inclusion is perhaps the most disgusted I've been by any film. Stone, or more likely Garrison, has some serious issues.
I really like JFK. I really enjoy this film. Again, it's not a film that I had watched in particular to because I didn't have 3 hours and 7 days to overhead in which to recap. But I have, again, I watched it most recently about a year ago, and I really, really enjoy it. But then I am a rationalist who puts my faith in experts, and I am able to set aside the nonsense that's being peddled here and appreciate it purely as a piece of filmmaking and entertainment, which is all it is, regardless of what Oliver Stone would like you to think. In terms of the filmmaking technique, in terms of performances and the cast that Stone works with, this is quite possibly the last objectively good film that Oliver Stone made, although I have got a massive soft spot for U-Turn, which I know will probably upset some people, and I wasn't really sold on Natural Born Killers personally. And I'll just continue to disprove my theory because I know there are a lot of people who really like Heaven and Earth. I think this is the last really good high-profile Oliver Stone film, put it that way. But again, it's just really concerning. I remember at the time this came out, my parents and a group of their friends going to see this at the cinema, and then coming out and coming back and having conversations about it around dinner tables and hearing them talk to their friends about it and how interesting the theories were. And even at that age, even when I was 12, I had read enough to know that it was at least 90% bull. And it was disconcerting. I think it might have been my first window into how susceptible people are, just a suggestion when something is presented so confidently, how the faith that I put in myself to be objective is not a quality that is necessarily shared with the majority of people. And in that sense, it's a very educational movie. But yes, I do really like JFK as a piece of entertainment, but I certainly don't put any stock in its historical perspective or the ideas of Jim Garrison.
Yeah, I probably would be able to enjoy it if I didn't have to stop it every 5 minutes and go, right, why is that a lie? Because it's like, there's a great...
Just open the valve on your neck and let the steam out. Yeah.
I hadn't seen JFK until 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Partly because I've got this friend, right, who once went off on one a while ago and was really, really angry about how bad this film was, and it kind of put me off of it.
It put you off? Yeah, that'll do that, yeah.
So the vitriol that particular friend had about this film, it it's like, I'll put that down in the bottom of my list of things to catch up on then. Weird that it was the same friend that was suggesting I watched it, okay. I didn't go into it expecting it to be full of facts, because having seen the great BBC documentary on it, I know that JFK shot himself just to drive the conspiracy theorists nuts. But I must admit that my back was up from the opening, because they have that the beginning with the voiceover. Is it Martin Sheen? It sounded like Martin Sheen, but I forgot to go back and check. And it's like, it's setting up as like, basically, this is fact, and I do not like how this is beginning. But then that passes, and it's after that, again, it's more just like, this film's quite entertaining. It's clearly nonsense. That's fine. I don't know much about the facts of the JFK assassination because I don't care. So I've never looked into the way you have with the debunking and stuff, Scott. Again, don't care. Although I do largely come down the same point of view of why do people think that governments who are so useless at almost everything can do watertight conspiracies? It doesn't make any sense.
And being linked with the mafia at the same time when they're doing it.
Yeah. Watch this. It's very well acted. It's really well shot. It's entertaining. It's awfully long though. And it does bob along quite well for the most part, but that final scene in the courtroom, which this take 3 or 4 days to get through, it's basically just a screen. I honestly didn't know whether that was author insertion, what it felt like, because I didn't really know the background to it, but I'm guessing it's more just Garrison.
There are points where you're watching it and you have to question that decision. It's like, are you just making this, are you just aiming for length for the sake of length here? It's like, Kevin, could we just do another take, but instead of saying back and to the left 12 times in a row, could you try 13? I just really want to see how it plays out.
But we'll just add them together and use all 25 of them.
Just put a 5-second gap between each instance, yeah?
So, it felt like author insertion at the end, this is Stone's view in it, but I mean, with Stone, it could well be. Nothing in there about Jews controlling Hollywood or anything else, so who knows?
We'll talk about people with an anti-Jewish bias a little bit more in a minute, I suppose.
Well, apart from that final scene, that just the bit of the film that really dragged, because it went on and on. It's like, yeah, I mean, it very possibly was the entirety of Garrison's final summation in that court, which seemed to go on for such a long time, wasn't adding anything.
Yeah, it's been expanded on for this. It's certainly much longer than the actual summation, and was Oliver Stone's doing it. But in terms of this movie's inaccuracies, it's very much the least of its problems.
To completely detach you from anything vaguely real, and it's like, this is a well-acted film that's well made and it's enjoyable. It's not brilliant, but it's enjoyable. So that's where I am with it. It's like, that was quite... I doubt I'll ever visit it again, but it was enjoyable enough.
I won't derail this into a debunking podcast, but if you do want to check this up, just search for JFK 100. There's a really excellently researched and footnoted referenced website. That's one thing. If you're watching this film, it does feel like an adaptation of the Wikipedia notification saying citation required.
Citation needed.
Is this something how better and more believable than Jesse Ventura's take on it, Scott?
No.
Because, I mean, as I said on Twitter, I would like to protest in the strongest possible terms that Jesse Ventura is not involved with any of this conspiracy theory stuff, and that's just wrong.
We never did get to the FEMA death camps either. One of the very simplest bits to debunk that became like a whole linchpin of Garrison's understanding of all this stuff is, right, you know, when he's saying they changed the route of the parade, right? Everything else had that logged as that being the actual route it was going to take. And where Garrison gets this from is one of the Dallas papers printed a very, very small map of the route, and it was to such a scale that you couldn't see the small deviation it took to go off, basically off Main Street and up the up ramp onto the freeway. And so when Garrison's saying, well, why didn't you just keep going down Main and get onto the freeway? It's because you couldn't. There's curbs in the way. If you wanted to get onto the freeway, you had to do that. And like the two other Dallas papers printed larger maps of this route that showed them going down that and round the plaza. And so the whole concept of there must be someone in power high up enough to change the president's route became such an overwhelming...
It's an article of faith.
Yeah, like a framing device of how powerful this is, when it's something that just didn't happen. He got it from a wrong map.
It's like the fundamental physics as well, where people, that tired old argument that you just can't, this bolt action, the Mannlicher Carcano is just this bolt action rifle and it's crap, and you couldn't have a barn door at anything more than 30 yards with it, and you can't possibly cycle it fast enough to get 3 shots off in that space of time, which has been roundly disproven 1,000 times by now by people who will self-proclaim, well, I'm not the best shot in the world. Let's see if I can do it with the exact same rifle. And can, with time to spare.
It sounds like soldiers learn to fire guns quickly.
Yeah. It's like, can we stop talking about this now? Oh, God. But yeah, still a good movie.